Like, I remember when Monica and Brandy released The Boy Is Mine, like, one of my favorite memories of my mom is her best friend who lived 2 floors above us calling her and being like, the video is premiering. And she was like, oh my God, Amika, put on your shoes right now. And we like ran up the stairs to like her friend's apartment on the 14th floor of our building, and like sitting in front of the TV. And like, that was like the most like girlish I had seen my mom, just like her and her friend like giggling over this video, and I'm just like sitting there as this kid just going like, oh, I can't wait to be a grown-up.
Excuse me, can I please talk to you for a minute? Sure, you look kind of familiar. Yeah, you do too. But I just wanted to know, do you know somebody named... You know his name. Oh yeah, definitely. I know his name. But I just want to let you know that he's mine. No, he's mine. You need to give it up. Hadn't felt enough. It's not hard to see. The boy is mine. I'm sorry that you seem to be confused. He belongs to me. The boy is mine. Think it's time we got.
Welcome to This Broken Mixtape, the podcast that rewinds and presses play on the soundtrack to your life. I'm Jeff Wu.
And I'm Justin Lee.
Toronto animator and illustrator Amika Cooper, better known as BlackPowerBarbie, creates art that celebrates feminism and Afrocentrism in a playful way. She's earned several notable commissions this year, including the Gardiner Museum's Yoko Ono-inspired installation, an animated spot for TIFF's Black Star program, and a trailer for Shad's A Short Story About a War. We sat down with Amika to talk about the politics and cultural significance of black women's hair, how her tastes range from neo-soul to emo-pop, and the low-key racism of the California Raisins.
This week, our special guest is Amika Cooper, aka BlackPowerBarbie. Welcome to the show, Amika.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. First off, tell us like when you first realized that you wanted to create art, and just for fun for one, but then when you became more serious about it and sort of chose to pursue it professionally.
Well, I think I was always kind of serious about art, like not to sound too obnoxious, but I've always been like very multidisciplinary. So for most of my like childhood up until I was 18, I was training to be an actor. So I took that very seriously. I was like a huge like musical theater geek. I was constantly like rehearsing or performing a show. I had auditioned and got into NYU for acting. And I didn't go because it was just like extremely expensive. So I ended up staying in Toronto to do school. And then that's kind of like when my focus had to shift. I couldn't act while I was doing school because I couldn't like rehearse a theater show while I was like going to class and working full time. And I think that's just when I kind of like blossomed as a person who was like, okay, if I can't do like the one thing that I'm used to, like I can also sing. So I could start like making music. And then I got into like filmmaking, and that's how I kind of fell into animation. Like everything kind of like grew into like the next phase of my creativity. And then around last year, when I was working an office job and I realized that that wasn't what I wanted to do, I was like, I need to start convincing more people to pay me for making art. And that's basically what I did.
And when did you sort of adopt the moniker BlackPowerBarbie?
BlackPowerBarbie came before the art. It was honestly just an Instagram name that I thought was like cheeky and like fun, and kind of encapsulated my personality as someone that people knew to be like politically and socially engaged, but like, a girl that was on the internet. And then after that, I think I kind of like ended up making art that fit the name, because I think those two inspirations came from the same place. And then when it caught on, I started being more intentional about who BlackPowerBarbie was and what that art would look like.
And tell us about that. Like, what sort of themes and issues do you like to explore in your work?
Yeah, so I try to focus on Black women, Black femmes, and, you know, the vulnerable side, the quiet sides. I like to focus on mental health that Black women face with. I think that in terms of like media representation, we don't get to see a lot of those things. I personally always felt misrepresented in that respect, where it was like someone who was like super like loud or abrasive or funny or sexual and like all of these other things. And like while there's like a special nuanced beauty in that, and like that is true, there's also the side where it's like we're also fragile and vulnerable and need to be protected. And I personally hate the idea of being a strong Black woman, so I'm making art for all the other weak Black women out there, you know, who need to see themselves represented in the spaces where they're not super strong, where they're not always like taking care of other people and where they need to be taken care of. Yeah.
Yeah, I really feel like people of color have not, you know, for a long time and still have not fully have like that true representation in pop culture. And I think pop culture really dictates a lot of the way people treat each other and these sort of stereotypes that exist. And I feel like within sort of Black culture, we're not seeing the sort of wide range of different personality types and personas that you would see just in like regular white people movies, right?
Yeah.
And the same could be said about Asians and Latinos and, you know, South Asians and so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think too, like, when I started to notice that, because I was like obsessed with like movies and TV like when I was a kid, and I also never really felt like the image of like a stereotypical Black girl, and there was always like this disconnect between who I was, what I was seeing, and what people were expecting of me. And I think that a large reason that people treated me like the way that they did and why they misunderstood me was because I was the only person that they seemed to know who was Black and had my personality and had like my like, you know, like idiosyncrasies. So really with the kind of media that I make, I try to just like fill that void, because I know that there are other Black girls out me. They're my friends, they're my little sister, they're me, and no one else is seeming to like make art that like echoes like the reality of who we are.
I want to talk a little bit about your piece or your series of pieces, Edges. The short that you put out. So something I watched, I don't know if you've heard of this movie called Nappily Ever After.
I just watched it with my mom and my sister.
Okay, this is my question for you. So I only watched the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And even just 20 minutes to it, I was like, is this movie offensive to Black women? Like the amount of weight they put on the hair. And I understand, I've talked to Black women about hair. I understand it's an important thing. But the fact that this character, her sole purpose in life is to like look good for her man so that he can propose to her. Yeah. And, you know, she gets up early that day and she like does her hair. And then, you know, like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know. Is this accurate? Is this fair?
I think the movie exaggerates in some respects, but for the most part, it's true. Like, I think other people who aren't Black don't understand why Black women are so upset when they're like, oh my God, your hair, like, can I touch it? Like, da da da. Because I don't think they understand, like, within the community, like, the importance that it holds and, like, how your identity is tied to it. So when it's like constantly scrutinized as this like weird foreign thing, it's personal and it's not just like an innocuous, oh, I think your hair is interesting and I want to like investigate it.
Right.
But in the movie, like they do kind of like go overboard. But I can attest to the fact, like when I remember being like between like 10 to 13. And Kelly Rowland had like this pixie cut when she was like in Destiny's Child and like starting to do like her own little solo things. And I had told my grandmother that I really wanted to like cut my hair to look like that. And like a part of my upbringing and like the way my family treated me was, you know, you have such like beautiful long hair, and like not a lot of other girls have hair like yours, and you should be proud of it. And when I told her that I wanted to like cut off like, you know, my long hair to like have like this short cut, which was like fucking dope, she was like, you can't cut off your crown, like who will you be? And I remember just being like, I'll still be me. Like what a wild thing to say to like, you know, a young girl. But that experience is emblematic of like a larger like issue that we deal with. When I was 18 and I decided to like cut my hair and get the style that I saw in that video, like that was a big deal. And then like 6 months after that, when I decided to shave that off and, you know, have like a short fade and like grow my hair natural again, that was also a big deal because it was like tied to my politics. So in some ways, and I don't know like where it stems from. I know that there are a lot of like social and political influences that have to do with like the way that we treat our hair as Black women, but the movie is accurate in that way. And it's, I think maybe like as like an outsider, it can like seem bizarre. As someone who is like used to it, I thought the movie was not making fun of it, but was like kind of parodying like how kind of like insane it is. Like we're still like this attached to like these like dead cells that grow out of our scalps. Yeah, that's kind of how I came away from it.
Okay.
But the movie itself just isn't good.
Yeah. I know. I think you realize the first 5 minutes, you're like,
you're just like, oh, it's a bad movie.
Yeah. And it's a shame because I love Sanaa Lathan.
Me too.
I'm big love and basketball fan.
Yeah. Me too.
And the guy who like plays her love interest, like the dark skinned dude, the English guy sucks.
Yeah.
But like the dark skinned dude, like I don't know if he's like African American or if he's British, but like there was just something about like this like accent that he had, and he was like playing this like soul brother that I was just like, you are so annoying.
So how did you sort of make that transition into more animation stuff? I know that you recently did Shad's trailer for his new album, but you've been animating for quite a while now, right? Yeah.
Basically, how I got into animation was, I think it was my second year of university, my first year in Ryerson's radio and TV program. I had a professor, Chris Alexander, who was like super influential and supportive, and he was my digital media professor, and part of the coursework was doing stop motion animation. So I did like one project. It was like 10 seconds long, and it took me like weeks and weeks and weeks to finish. But I really fell in love with it, and he was really supportive, and he was like, you're a storyteller, like this is your superpower, like you should really continue doing this. So I did, and the next year, which was my third year, I did like a 4-minute short film that was claymation called Frida and Dingwall Talk About Love. And it was like, I like built the set, I built the characters out of clay, I animated them. I spent like 4 long months doing that. And I really appreciated the way that animation let me tell stories. I didn't have to like assemble a cast and a crew and do all of this extra shit. It was literally just me in my apartment making this short film. And as far as like student films go, it did pretty well. I got a lot of praise from my professors. It was like showcased, and I got to show it at the Carlton Cinema, and I like I did like a couple festivals or like won stuff. And I really feel like that positive affirmation where it's just like, oh, like I can like do things and like people will see it and like it and understand what I'm trying to say. And like for the first time, I felt like people understood me. So I think just off of that high, I just kept going. And I veered off the path of stop motion animation just because it took too long. And I was like, okay, I could just do 2D stuff on my computer. So then I learned to draw, and then I just started doing that. And I did like a music video for someone, and then I just started doing like little projects for myself, and it kind of snowballed from there.
And then how about specifically for Shad's trailer?
So Shad's manager, G, has been a friend of mine for a couple years. We met at this event called Practice that he does now at the Drake Hotel with some of my other friends, Jamal Padmore, Matthew Progress, Gavin, like a bunch of different people. And that was a couple years ago when I was more so focusing on my like artistic expression as a singer. So he met me as a singer, and then just like through opening up as a person, like I allowed other people to see like I also like do visual art and animation. And Shad's manager G has always been super supportive of me, and he's like, you should like just like keep creating and sharing and repeating, and like things will come to you. And then sometime during like this past summer, Shad started following me on Instagram. And then I think maybe a month after that, I saw him at Practice. And I went up to him, and it's like that thing where you don't know if someone who follows you like knows who you are in real life. So I like very tentatively was like, hey, I don't know if you know who. And he's like, you're BlackPowerBarbie. I'm like, oh my God. You do know who I am. It's me. And then we just started talking, and it had nothing to do with like his work, my work. It was just like we were vibing. And obviously I knew he was aware of like what I did because he was following me. And then literally 2 weeks after that, G emailed me, and he was like, hey, so Shad's releasing an album, and we wanted to know if you'd be interested in animating a trailer for it. And I was like, of course I'm interested. I'm more than interested. I'll do it. I'll do whatever you want. And then from there, me and Shad we had like a couple emails, a couple phone calls where we just like really sat and talked about his album and what he wanted to accomplish with the trailer. And it was really cool because it was a really hands-on project for me where I got to direct it and come up with storyboards and the shot list and like the look and feel of it, and then animate it. And they were really supportive throughout. Like they really were just like, whatever you want to do, you have really great instincts. And then we ended up with something that everyone involved really liked.
Yeah, it turned out really great. I loved it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So going back on the whole claymation thing. So first off, I love claymation, and I love that you chose that medium, but I understand that it is time consuming.
It's too much.
Yeah. But growing up, I think my sort of introduction to claymation was through like the California Raisins. And I think even as a kid, I was like, there's something very wrong with this. This is some racist shit. Like, I don't know. It's how, I mean.
The California Raisins, now that you say it, and now that you say that it was racist, I never thought about it before.
But you don't, like, really
remember,
as a kid?
I remember a sense of discomfort. Like, A, like, they're ugly. And B, like, why are they talking like that? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, it's kind of like when Transformers came out, the movie, and they're talking in Ebonics and breakdancing. There's this one scene where, I don't know, Bumblebee, I think, is breakdancing.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and I was like, what is happening right now?
Yeah. That, I mean, the more you grow, the more you know. Like, when I was a teenager, I don't think that bothered me as much. But now there's certain things that I can't watch where I'm just like, this is really bad. Like, I saw a scary movie for the first time last weekend, and I was just like, do you notice how the black woman is the only one who didn't get killed by the Scream character? And it was like literally all the white people around her who like killed her, and everyone was okay with it. Anyways, I digress. But yeah.
So let's get into music. What musicians and sort of artists are you influenced by in your work?
Oh, I would say I'm influenced pretty heavily by music, but who those people are isn't super specific. Like, if I get a new job, whether it's like illustration or animation, the first thing I do is just start listening to lots of music and thinking about the creative brief. Music is something for me that's like very inspirational and just like gets me to a place where I can think about art as a whole. So yeah, music does play a huge role in my process.
And is there like sort of a specific album or artist that you find yourself listening to a lot when you're working, or?
No, I don't like, I mean, it kind of like, it depends on like the time. So when it comes to like my personal work, usually what will happen is I'll listen to a song and I'll think to myself, oh, like this visual would be really cool with these sounds, or like if I could do like a music video for this, like this is what I would do. And I might do like a short animation or like an illustration that goes along with that. By the time that piece of work is done, it might not be connected to the song anymore, and I might not tell people like this is what I was listening to when I was making this. But I would say that like hip hop and R&B lately have been what have been inspiring me the most.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff are you listening to right now?
I mean, it's so weird because like when I was younger, like I never really used to listen to like rap and R&B. Like I was like a stupid like scene emo kid. But I really love like people like Daniel Caesar, people like her. I also really love jazz. So like the Robert Glasper Experiment is a band that is really inspirational. And Esperanza Spalding, Gizmo, there are a bunch of different people. It's kind of all over the place. Nick Hakim, like his album Green Twins is something that like continues to inspire me constantly. So kind of stuff that like has that feel to it. It's like very loose and emotive. Love Thundercat, Solange, obviously. Solange, I think like whether or not I'm like actively listening to her, what she accomplished with A Seat at the Table is kind of like the pinnacle of like what I hope for my own career in whatever it turns out to be.
And like, let's backtrack here a little bit. And, you know, when you first were introduced to music and just playing around the house, what kind of stuff would your parents be playing?
So my mom is not super young, but she was 22 when she had me, and I was born in 92. So I was lucky enough that like, you know, it was a lot of like R&B, like from back in the day. Like she would order like those like Columbia House CDs. So we always had like mad music in the house, and I was an only child for a long time. So it was just like me going through all of her stuff. Erykah Badu, 112, Whitney Houston, like the Waiting to Exhale soundtrack. I realize now that I probably shouldn't have been listening to it when I was like that young. But I really, really, really loved it. And we're West Indian, so a lot of like calypso and reggae and stuff like that. And yeah, that was basically it. I don't know if I can get more specific than that, because it was really a lot of shit. Whatever like the cool young people in like 98 were listening to, like that's what I was listening to, because like that's who my mom was. Like I remember when Monica and Brandy released The Boy Is Mine, like one of my favorite memories of my mom is her best friend who lived 2 floors above us calling her and being like, the video is premiering, and she was like, oh my God, Amika, put on your shoes right now. And we like ran up the stairs to like her friend's apartment on the 14th floor of our building, and like sitting in front of the TV, and like that was like the most like girlish I had seen my mom, just like her and her friend like giggling over this video, and I'm just like sitting there as this kid just going like, oh, I can't wait to be a grown-up.
Were you team Brandy or team Monica?
I feel like I was team Brandy, just because I was more familiar with her and I just liked her, and I was like, she has braids like me, like I'm sure she's right.
I think Brandy, I mean, nothing against Monica, but Brandy has actually sort of stood the test of time. And I mean, I feel like she's still incredible. You know, not to say Monica isn't, but you know.
She is. But Brandy is really messy now.
Yeah.
Like if you pay attention to like stupid like Instagram stuff and like celebrity gossip, like I can't say that I'm super proud of like the way that Brandy's personality has unfolded, but I mean musically. Yes, perhaps. Monica's more concerned with just, you know, raising her kids and being friends with famous people.
Right. And then do you remember like sort of the first CD that you bought on your own?
Yeah. This is embarrassing.
They usually are.
Okay, so the first CD that I purchased, there are two that I got at the same time. And it was when I was in grade 6, and my grandmother came up from the States to visit. And my mom never let me buy like my own music. So when my grandma came, this was like my opportunity. So I got Bowling for Soup, which was this like stupid pop rock band that I was like obsessed with.
Okay.
That I had like heard on Ripley's Top 40, and I was like, I need to like rip all of their music off of AOL.
What was their single? I don't remember.
1985.
I remember the band. I don't recall what they sound like. I remember the name.
It was like 1985, just like stuff like that was like their song. And the other, I think like a couple years ago, I went home and I found the CD and I listened to it, and I was just like, this band was not good. But at the same time, I also bought JoJo's Debut.
Okay.
And like that was my jam. I was like, JoJo is perfect. But the first CD, like even before that, grade 4, I didn't buy this, but it was gifted to me on my birthday. Alicia Keys, what was the songs in A minor?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That album, like when I got it, it was at my birthday party. I shit you not, I opened it up. I screamed. I screamed like the loudest I had ever screamed before. And I like ran around like my whole house because I couldn't believe it. And then I never stopped playing that album. Like I would like sit my parents down, and like this was like grown people shit that she was like talking about. And I was like, I feel like you guys can relate to this song. So let's just sit here and listen to it. And you do it.
No, I
Like
remember
that.
how special that album, the first time I heard that, I was like, this is, because at that time, music was, not that it wasn't in a good place, but I don't know, it was unlike anything I had heard. And yeah, I still love that album.
Yeah, that album, I think before then, like any like black girl growing up in the 90s, like there was always like a song to sing with your friends or like a dance routine to practice for like the talent show. But when I heard that album, I started to consider musicianship more, and I'd always loved singing, but that was like the first time that I was like, I want to learn this album front to back. I want to like be a good singer. You know, like I want to consider this to be like an artistic skill. And I think like that was kind of like the light flip that kind of switched in my head, where I was just like, art is a thing that you can practice and be good at and be skillful. And Alicia Keys occupied this really great space where she was like a classically trained pianist. She was making R&B. She was #1 on the charts. She had cornrows with beads at the end, just like me. And I don't know. I'd never really seen anyone like her before.
Mm-hmm. And so, you know, you were talking earlier about how you were, you know, somewhat serious about singing. And is that something that you're still doing, or like is it just more kind of for fun now?
It's both. It's hard like having like multiple like passions, because you know, you can only do so much in a day, and I think it's still something that I want to do. I've never been the kind of person or singer where I was like, I want to be on the radio or I want to play like big shows or whatever. I honestly just like doing it. I love writing songs with my friends. I love thinking about music and considering it every day. I love singing. Before I can like get up and like be a normal person and like, you know, draw or animate, a huge part of my self-care is just like singing. And like singing one song like all the way through and like trying to like be good at it and like considering how I sound and all that stuff. So it is like a important part of me. Now I'm getting to a place where my art is like allowing me to have more free time and kind of be like, I guess like kind of like lackadaisical and just be like, how do I feel today? Like, what do I want to do? So that is something that I want to spend more time doing. And people like G, Shad's manager, are constantly harassing me about like just releasing something and animating something to go with it, and just like releasing it out into the world. So that's definitely something that's on the horizon.
Yeah. How about in terms of performing? I mean, outside of the practice space, do you ever play shows? No.
I don't know. I feel like that would be kind of like putting the horse before the cart, or whatever that saying is. I don't think that I would want to do that before like I've released like a few songs. Just because like the thing with practice is that it's like a safe space. Not only are they people that I know, but it's also everyone kind of agreeing to like a certain collaborative environment where it's constructive and there's no judgment, and you really just go up there and you don't know what's going to happen. And I like performing live when I'm there because there isn't this pressure. And I think what's taken me so long with music is that it almost feels more personal than anything else that I've ever done. When I was an actor, I was being other people. And when I create visual art, those, like that content exists outside of myself. But when you're singing, it's you doing something. And when you're writing a song, like you're endowing it with a lot of who you are and like what you've experienced. So I'm not in a rush. And performing is really personal, and I don't know if I could do that if I wasn't in a safe space, and if I didn't have something to sing that I was like comfortable with,
Yeah, absolutely. So that's almost time for us, but before we go, I'm wondering, and humor me here, with the name BlackPowerBarbie, who would be your kin? And obviously it doesn't have to be a male, but what would you name that your partner, I guess?
Probably like Black Power Ken or Black Power Kadeem. I don't know.
I like the second one way more.
Like we'll take Ken out and then just like put like something that's like very like Nation of Islam-y and like classic. I never really thought about that. That's a good question. I don't know if BlackPowerBarbie needs a Ken.
She doesn't need anyone for sure, but if she were to.
Yeah.
When she gets bored, I don't know.
Yeah, she has a ting. She has a ting.
So where can people catch your work at? Where can they view your work?
Yeah, so Instagram is like my main portal to everyone else. So at BlackPowerBarbie, and AmikaCooper.com if you want to be super professional about it.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Amika.
Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to Season 2, Episode 24 of This Broken Mixtape with Illustrator and Animator BlackPowerBarbie, aka Amika Cooper. If you haven't already, visit thisbrokenmixtape.com to check out this episode's Spotify playlist. There you'll also find all of our past interviews and custom illustrations for each show. If you enjoyed this episode, please take the time to subscribe, rate, and share our podcast however you're tuning into us today. Also, if you have any comments, feedback, or ideas for guests, feel free to drop us a line through our website, Instagram, or Twitter. You can find all our episodes on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, the Buns Podcast Network, YouTube, and now Spotify. As always, thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. Cheers.